Hello and welcome. You're watching SR Live International and this is Sheetal Rajput. Donald Trump, his Making America Great Again initiative, the tariff wars, and the geopolitical situation. The world has never been so much on tenterhooks as it seems today. The entire world, every power that matters, is faced today with the uphill task of navigating this Trump-influenced world order. Renowned diplomatic expert and authority on US and Indo-US relations, Robinder Sachdeva, addresses this pressing issue in his latest book, Trumpotopia. Experts are calling Trumpotopia a must-read for every boardroom and foreign ministry that attempts to deal with Donald Trump and an America shaped by cultural combat, charisma, and chaos. The author of Trumpotopia, Robinder Sachdeva, joins me live on the show today. So joining me today on the show is the author of Trumpotopia, well-known international affairs expert, Robinder Sachdeva. Mr. Sachdeva, welcome to SR Live International. Congratulations for the book. Your book is getting rave reviews all over the world. First of all, why Trump as the subject? And second, what does Trumpotopia mean? Why this title?
Thank you so much, Sheetalji, and it's a pleasure to be with you today to discuss this. By the way, I have just now, fresh off the press, hot, received my author copies just now, minutes ago, and you're the first person with whom I'm talking about the book after receiving the hard copy. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you.
Indeed a privilege, indeed a privilege.
Same here. But Trumpotopia, firstly, the name. The name essentially, I started writing the book over a year ago, more than a year ago, year and a quarter. And to my mind, the question was that what is the, utopia that Trump wants to build? He wants to take America into a utopia. So what is that utopia? So therefore, Trump's utopia, Trumpotopia, the America he envisions in the future. So that's how come this name came to be. The book is, 770 pages thick, and my publisher tells me it's the thickest book on Trump written ever. The previous one was some book about 750 pages. I did not realize. I just kept writing. It's written as a guidebook. The title is A Guidebook to Decode Donald Trump and the Culture and Politics of America, with tips for world leaders to tackle Trumpotopia.
Trump has become an enigma of sorts, considering whatever is happening internationally, the geopolitical situation, what is happening inside United States of America, the tariff wars, so many other issues. What do you think is the way to understanding Donald Trump? And that happens to be the first chapter in your book too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You said that Trump has become an enigma. I'm reminded of a quote I read somewhere once that this person is an enigma wrapped in a mystery, packed in something else. So Trump is all of that together out there, right? And yes, how to deal with him. One third of my book of 770 pages, that means over 250 pages in the book are tips, practical tips for world leaders, diplomats, interlocutors, corporate CEOs to deal with Trump and his administration. Remember that Trump is a personality who has now made sure in his second term that the entire US federal government will be in his image. All his ministers, cabinet, ranks, senior officials will toe Trump's line and will also toe the worldview that Trump brings. So it's about engaging, understanding Trump. Yeah, he is an enigma and he's wrapped in mystery. But there's several things which are known about him and which he himself says. And if you see, you find a pattern, like his stance on trade. In researching this book, I went back to the first time he made any comments on international affairs was back in 1972. He was nearly 4 years out of his MBA and doing business in his father's construction firm. And he was writing letters to New York Times and he was blaming Japan for ripping off America. And he was talking in the 90s, he was talking to the Kuwaitis, why should we help them? They are selling us oil and they have their billions of dollars, they live in golden palaces, the world is unfair. That has been his refrain all through his life. So there are some things in Trump which are not so enigmatic, big picture trends and what he does, which are clearly out there. So in my book, I track and trace some of those trends. But yes, quite a few things. He is a certain personality. There are two types of personality. There's a personality known as
What,
system
what
one.
is what is you talk about his natural thinking style? How do you interpret that?
Oh, wonderful question. I was exactly going to say to it. Uh, there is a theory known as thinking fast and thinking slow. Kaufman, I think the author's name, I have it in my book. He defined that there are two kinds of people, system one and system two. System one people act immediate, they don't reflect, they go by what you could say more gut feel, and they have a set of parameters out there. System one people. System two people act, react slow, they take time to they deliberate and they work according to that. Trump is a system one personality. Very clearly, he's a system one personality in terms of his thinking. He just thinks immediate, and you can see it in his reactions, actions, and the decisions he makes. When he talks to someone, he goes off anywhere and then he sticks with it in a way. So his thinking style is very, very much system one personality. To understand Trump, therefore, read partly my book, that system one thinking, and then read that other theory, system one and system two people.
Hmm. He seems to be having very short time horizons, which you also talk about, and people have been discussing. How long will his latest or new outlook of the moment last? Nobody knows. Then there are those constant flip flops. Today hot, tomorrow cold. It's becoming increasingly difficult for the world to actually deal with it and to do business with him.
Absolutely, so very true. All we can do is try understand him and some of his patterns, and therefore be able to engage with him little better or little more strategically. Let's say. Uh, Now, as to his attention span, he moves from topic to topic. That's partly again a system one thinker, characteristic. Uh, Currently, in the White House, there's the word around is that when Trump says the first thing, don't worry, don't bother. If he says it the second time, don't worry, don't bother. But when he says third time, then you better start acting. So yes, there are some things he says and then he forgets and moves on. But remember, he may move on, but he may come back to that very thing 6 months later. The Greenland thing that America wants to own Greenland. Remember in his
Yeah.
first term, it started in his
Hmm.
first term also, right? Okay, that time he had more, restrictions on his presidential powers and he didn't feel so emboldened. But this time round, he's completely emboldened and he has complete grasp so far on his party. And therefore, he's going with the thought of the day that comes to him. Whatever comes to his attention, if it sticks, then he acts.
And in his endeavor for making America great again, MAGA as we call it, is there any room or any scope for developing relationships, meaningful relationships with countries across the globe, or meaningful diplomatic ties with countries across the board? Uh, in recent times, we have seen few examples of that.
Sure, no, certainly very right. I mean, the Make America Great Again moment is a tsunami which he created, right? Trump actually helicoptered it. He didn't have an organizational base. He was not into politics. He had a brand and he had money, some money, whatsoever, some money, etc. Right? The Conservative Party were in a flux. There were many issues with it, and there was something called the Tea Party, which was more on the right, the far right. Some of them were, of course, also. He, in a way, helicoptered over, took over that movement, and drew
Hmm.
them in and created what he calls and what is now Make America Great Again. And Make America Great Again is not only a slogan, it has become a culture, a cultural context. Now, to answer your question, that is there scope for diplomatic relations? Yes, there is. But that
Hmm.
scope is for with countries where the politician leaders are also of the right populist nationalist category. Like Hungary's Orban, America is happy. But of course, forget the tariffs. Tariffs are for everyone, friend or foe, because tariffs is money in a, and Trump needs tariff for very different purpose than
In
what we
fact,
think.
dealing with tariffs has become such a headache for every country around the world.
Oh, certainly. I mean, it is a headache and it will be one. America's average tariffs on all imported goods into America, weighted trade average, was 2.5% before Trump took office on January 2025. Then, when he started talking on Liberation Day and 90%, 40%,
Hmm.
65%, whatever, there was a pushback. And then he said, okay, a 90-day moratorium or a pause, flat 10%. Everyone in the world was happy, oh, 10%. But remember, 10% is still four times of the 2.5%. And even now, when he's negotiating the deals with all these countries, all of these deals are going to end up with definitely more than 10%.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's on the tariffs. But coming back to the point of relations with countries, diplomatic, if there is scope, yes, there is scope for America to build relations with Brazil if Bolsonaro becomes the president. Then Brazil will have close relations. Hungary's Orban already has. Argentina's Milei, he already has good relations. So such leaders, where there are such governments, would have diplomatically closer ties with America, but still that does not mean that they will be able to avoid or evade the matter of tariffs. Because with tariffs, what Trump intends is that the US Treasury, in their estimation, is going to gain around $6 to $7 trillion if the full scope was applied over the
Hmm.
next 10 years. With the money collected from the tariffs, Trump's idea is one, to reduce income taxes. Okay, that's his philosophy. Low taxes, less taxes, right? So if you reduce taxes, but the government still needs money to run for so many things, where do you get that money from? Tariffs. So that's why he's very fond of tariffs. He says it's the most beautiful word in the English dictionary. It
Hmm.
helps him, he thinks, to bring in the money into the US government, which he can then use and lower the income tax. That's one. Secondly, many American industries will hurt in this whole tariff game. Some will
Hmm.
benefit. Okay, the steel
Hmm.
producers, manufacturers will benefit, but the sectors which consume steel, aviation, car makers, they will hurt.
So then,
So
what does this do for America in the long run? I will come to India and other parts of the world also, but
what it does for America in the long run, what he wants to do is he wants to re-industrialize America. Okay, and he's succeeding partly in that. He's getting billions of dollars of investments and promises show to locate manufacture in America. TSMC, the Taiwan super company on semiconductors, they were already planning $60 billion under
hmm.
Biden's guidance, but now they're saying they'll take it up to maybe $150 billion.
Hmm.
Siemens saying, okay, we'll now invest $10 billion for our R&D. Apple promising $500 billion. So that all money which these companies could have invested in other countries, by the way, is now Trump is attracting that money. So he's looking to reindustrialize America in terms of industrialization, whatever it may mean. Secondly, what he's trying for America is he's trying to take America to be a good Christian nation. He has one of his main blocks of support has come from evangelical Christians, and they want Christian values in the education system, in the American society. So he wants to take it back. Trump himself is not a good Christian, by the way. Thrice
Hmm.
married or divorced and with his reputation. So that's not
That's
a good
interesting.
Christian.
That's
But
interesting.
yeah, but the evangelicals support him completely. In their view, Jesus has sent him to make America a Christian nation. Now, this man whom Jesus sent, Donald Trump, may have his some flaws, but we forgive him because he's working for a bigger cause. So
But
that's why.
isn't that against basic principle of United States of America, which stands for diversity, which stands for multiple ethnicities living together?
Great point. Again,
How
in
will
my book,
Trump
for example,
balance that out?
Absolutely, it isn't. See, absolutely right. In my book, also in today, the culture of America traditionally is said to be a melting pot. America is said to be a melting pot. Immigrants from world over come, mix, and they work together and they create the diversity and the creativeness, the melting pot.
Hmm.
Then in the 90s started coming a perspective that no, everybody cannot be in a melting pot and become the same white Anglo-Saxon culture. Let us recognize diversity more. So it was said America is a salad bowl, right? In a bowl you have different pieces of salads or whatever, salad bowl. These are the two metaphors which I used to describe America so far, mainly melting pot. In my book, I argue America is no longer a melting pot. It is now a boxing ring. It is a boxing ring where MAGA, that is the Trump supporters, this whole
Hmm.
segments, whatever you say, the block. It's MAGA versus the liberal grouping. So it's a boxing match, not match, boxing game. Each side
Hmm.
is afraid of the other. The MAGA Christians are afraid that if the liberals come to office, they are going to take over my guns, they'll take over my property rights, they'll they'll increase income tax, all of those socialist kind of things, and more, wrap it up. The liberals are afraid that if Trump comes, and he has come, it will be authoritarian, dictatorial, and all, and which it is also, by the way. So both sides fear each other, both sides are angry at each other. America
Hmm.
is today not a melting pot, America is today a boxing ring.
Which speaks of uncertain times, not just all over the world as we are seeing, but also within the United States of America. If we talk about India, Indo US relations, what is the scope there uh, in the Trump scheme of things?
In the Trump scheme of things and the scope, see, a lot of scope is there already because there's momentum. There's already a lot of relationships between the US and India, deeper, wider defense, trade, people, IT services, and our Indian diaspora, right? The bridge which is
Yeah.
there. Huge. That's a huge asset we have. So many of these things are all, these are the things which, like a ship has a keel, a huge weight which keeps the ship balanced in the oceans. So that is
Hmm.
the keel of relations that we have.
Hmm.
Now, that said, Trump, we know, is absolutely on the matter of tariffs very much hell bent upon. Okay. So therein we will, and he's doing the same with friend or foe, Japan and America. He's imposed what tariffs? 25% on Japan. Canada, remember the dispute out there.
Hmm.
Okay, UK, EU, I mean EU, all of that. So it doesn't matter you're a friend or foe, you are going to
Hmm.
face tariffs, and we don't know what kind of tariffs India will face. It will depend partly on our negotiations, partly on varied complexities. So that is a situation we will face. Uh, Other than that, or in addition to that, Trump definitely, I think, recognizes India as a strong nation as in strong economically, strong militarily, and growing, and with the largest population on the planet.
Hmm.
So Trump, I think, to a good extent, and we are a democracy. Uh, to a good extent, Trump looks at India, I think, in a favorable view, respectfully, if I were to even say that. But in the Trump scheme of things, when he realizes or if he has any particular issue on which he wishes to work, he will proceed ahead with it, irrespective of what his relationship with you is. You've seen cases once again, Japan, UK, any country you look, if it comes to what he has determined is his self interest or the self interest of what he thinks is good for America, and he gets bent upon it, we will also have to engage and cross the bridge when it comes.
But wouldn't that isolate America further and create further divisions and blocks in the world?
Oh,
Where do
absolutely.
you see things geopolitically?
No, absolutely is. What the US is doing, actually, in one other big picture, what's happening right now we are seeing is that the number one empire of the world, that is the United States, there's a there's a number two empire which is racing and which wants to be number one. Number one empire has now decided that it will never ever give up its number one position. It will do anything and everything in its power to make sure that the number two does not become number one. But That's impossible, the momentum of history. Now, that said, so in a way, it's a last gasp also of the West, I would say, okay, to maintain global hegemony. They may succeed in it for some while, but yes, this will backfire on the West. It will backfire on the US and Europe. And as you're saying, yes, all countries are realizing, India also, we are realizing, okay, if this is how America views its self interest, we have to relook. And here we have to relook our partnerships, our supply chains, our various agreements with everyone. We have to even relook, maybe is China really our enemy or not? Or enemy, but how much do we want, conflict with China, or should we? Or China will be forced to even think that, okay, do I really need to be in friction with India? Maybe we may not become friends, but we can have a working relationship in any case already we have a huge trade between China and India. So what is happening right now, in a sense, is a model separately I have developed. The world of today is, I mean, it's a 3D model just to convey the complexity to the viewers that, these you can imagine as countries, everyone linked to each other. So countries are making different kinds of partnerships and all to figure out their best interests. So the more the US and Europe is also joining the US in some, or the US presses this down, the more it will precipitate, or the more it will accelerate other countries to urgently search for Atmanirbharta. Right?
In your book, you also lay out tips to handle Trump's way of things, to deal with Donald Trump, how to do business with him, how to deal with him, how to deal with Trumpotopia.
One third of the book is on tips. So, yeah, here you see
Which is a large chunk of the book.
the last chunk, this chunk. So, you see,
Yeah.
about one third the book is that. Here I've looked at, let me remember myself what all I've looked at. I've looked at Trump's psychology. I've looked at one tip is, if India wants to understand Trump and his negotiation style, or any corporates, send your top level officials and diplomats to New York for 1 year. Tell them to work in the real estate industry of New York, selling, buying apartments, blocks, development projects, whatever. Get internships with some large firms or small firms. Do that. You need to learn the way New Yorkers negotiate, the high-powered ones. Trump's growing up was, or his, of course, in the 70s, 80s, he grew up, and that's when he achieved one big chunk of his success. Uh, and the style of negotiations there, bluffing, setting artificial deadlines, choosing the location of a meeting such that the other party feels little overawed, host a meeting in a very opulent place. Okay, these are some small tactics, a bunch more, which, wheeling, dealing, calling on favors, all of that. I mean, Trump dealt with the mafia also. Trump was in construction business. The cement supply in New York was controlled by a mafia. You have to pay money to the mafia to get cement in New York those days. The labor, he was in construction industry building his skyscrapers and all. The labor, the trade unions were controlled by mafias. So he's grown through that, rough and tumble of New York style work. So one tip is go do this, and I've written out several things. Another big tip is, and details, each tip is about 30, 40 pages. Another tip is, in his book, Art of the Deal in 87, he has
Art
clearly
of the
said
Deal. Art of the Deal is the most relevant one, I guess.
exactly, it's one in which he has written that how he, negotiates, walk away, threat, this, that. So look at all of those and think of how to counter those. This guy operates like this, he has said, and yes, he does more or less. You do that. Another tip is, we were talking about what's his thinking style, system one. Okay. How to negotiate with people who are a system one personality. I've looked at. Then another tip is in international relations, we all know, I mean, there's theories of like, especially game theory, right? I've applied game theory to Trump, okay, to look at how he does that. Another tip is network and grow close relations with his advisors and family. I mean, if you want to work with them, if you don't
So
want, fine.
basically, the world will have to work a lot harder on this.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah.
A lot harder on this. Trumpotopia is available on Amazon
Yes, sir.
internationally, worldwide, and
Yeah,
also in
worldwide.
India. Would
Not in
you?
India. In India yet, it will take about, I think, another 3 weeks because of the distribution system, the way they are set up, and my publisher in the US. So in India, in about 3 weeks' time, but worldwide, in about 20 odd countries, is available, both in paperback and also the Kindle digital version. Because what I've done, that's why it's become so thick, like the system one thinking which you asked. I've gone deep into it to explain system one thinking. Similarly, like in communication, there is one complete chapter on his verbal and non-verbal communications. And there I've used theories of verbal communication, non-verbal communication, his facial expressions. His facial expressions, sometimes he does, you can see his facial expressions change. I've got a whole list of them. There are about 20 of those. Hand gestures. Okay, okay. Thumbs up. You see, yesterday he was doing giving a thumbs up to Pam Bondi. Remember the DOJ Attorney General who's in controversy? Thumbs up. Pointing. Very often he points with his fingers. It may seem aggressive, but that's what he does. Space. He takes up space. When he walks and all, he wants to keep his space. Shoulder. Very often when he's talking, he uses his shoulder to give that impact. Okay. Lean in. Very often he leans in. So they're about finger tapping. Very often he does that. He taps his finger on the surface that you are. And each one of these kind of little bit indicate the psychological
That's
aspect.
quite an in-depth read on Donald Trump, about his personality, everything about him. Thank you so much, Robinder Sachdeva, for joining me and being here with us on SR Live International. Trumpotopia is featured for the first time on any network all
Anyway,
over the world for the first time on SR Live International. Thank you so much for talking to us.
thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for covering Trumpotopia. As any author, I'm so much delighted to talk about this. But yes, it's the first interview I'm giving with someone with a hard copy in my hands. This just came half an hour ago. Thank you.